everybody, welcome to Workforce Gaming. I'm Brad, here with Doug.
Hey.
It is the end of 2020, actually the beginning of 2021, which means we are legally required to talk about our Game of the Year. So, what we did is we kind of came up with some categories that we felt like are more the way we play games.
Yes.
More than just going like best action adventure.
I think if we played 100 games that came out in 2020, we could actually like have enough games to put in those categories and stuff. But I think we both like playing a lot of games we did play a lot of 2020 games, obviously, but I think a lot of games we play are also from previous years and that sort of thing as well. So it's like, if we played every single game that came out, I think we could actually maybe do an adventure JRPG and that sort of thing. But if you played one JRPG this year, it's like that one won.
Yeah. It was Final Fantasy VII because that's the one I played.
Yeah. Is Demon's Souls an arch JRPG? No, just kidding. Let's keep
going. So we've got some different categories here that maybe a little different than what other people do, but there's stuff that we feel like we can actually talk about and have some things to say about versus just trying to force your traditional Game of the Year things. Let's start this off with what we call best insert here, meaning the best just something that you saw this year in a 2020 game, whether it was literally anything, whatever the thing that you saw that like stuck out with you and went, man, that is something that I've never really seen before, or something that really struck me. Yep. So we'll have Doug go first here.
So I'll have to set up a little bit of it. So before this year, there's like three types of remakes. There's reimaginings, and remasters. And I feel like they all have like pretty well defined characteristics. Like, okay, reimagining is this, remake is this, and that sort of thing. I'm going to give Final Fantasy VII the award for the best, I'll say like new spin on that formula. I think that most games, how they acknowledge that they are a remake is like...
Wait, can we pause really quick?
Yeah.
There may or may not be things that come up as spoilers for some of these.
That's fine. That's fine. And I think the way that I'll talk about this, it's not going to be too spoiler heavy, but like if you want to know 0 things about Final Fantasy VII, then
exactly.
This will probably spoil little bits and pieces, but
exactly.
I'll say,
just wanted to clarify that may come up. So
that may come up. Yeah, it's okay. If you haven't played Final Fantasy VII by now, no, I'm just kidding. Games are expensive. Wait for a sale. So I think that I haven't seen a game that basically really thought about what it like. Okay, when they usually do like a remake or reimagining or whatever, the way they usually acknowledge the older game is like a wink and a nod. Like, here's a low poly model from the old game. It's like, that was the old game. Remember that one? Or it's like a lot of like winking and nodding, but it doesn't really incorporate itself into the story, like what it means to be a remake and that sort of thing. So I just thought it was like really interesting that Final Fantasy VII remake, besides being like a clever title, really thought about just the weight of making a remake, the fan expectations of making a remake, and I think it was a game that like actually acknowledged that. I think more so than any other sort of remake out there. I just recently played the Shadow of the Colossus remake, which I really, really loved. And you have to think about the pressure that they were under to make a remake to Shadow of the Colossus, which is like one of the best games ever made. And it doesn't show there, like the amount of pressure they were under to like make this great game. I'd say the same thing with Demon's Souls. It's like, this is like one of the best games ever made and you're remaking it. And I think that FF7, actually took the time to acknowledge both to the developers and the fans. It was more of a conversation of like, hey guys, we know that you guys have a shit ton of expectations for this. We have a bunch of expectations of this for ourselves, and how that kind of integrates itself into the plot in interesting ways. I think that remake was way more imaginative than I ever thought it could be. And I don't know many other franchises, at least video game franchises. I'd say it's like brand new. I think the only other thing I could think of that would be close. That'd be kind of a spoiler, I guess, but it's not usually in video games.
Yeah, and again, I think it is really cool because I think it's one of the few remakes or remasters or whatever's that I think really actually had something new to say. I think it's hard to see a game remade, reimagined, where it actually goes, okay, we're going to say something different than what we said 2015, 10, however long ago. We're going to actually say something new.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because I would think like the Resident Evil 2 and like the Ratchet and Clank remakes, they basically took the mechanics that were already established in the newer games and like, let's just apply that to the older games. And Final Fantasy VII didn't really do that. Like, you'd expect it to do that. It's like, okay, let's just take Final Fantasy 15 and do that. But it's like, no, let's do our own thing. It was very impressive. Yeah.
All right, so my best insert here, I'm gonna call best way to find a bunch of shit, and that goes. And I'm gonna give that to Ghost of Tsushima, mostly just so I can say that one more time. But I am not a fan of open worlds, and I'm even less a fan of here's a bunch of stuff to do. But that game was just so imaginative in the way that like you found these different collectibles, whether it was following the wind, which I think just initially just hit you so hard how they actually took the stupid like go 120 meters forward and actually contextualized it in the world. And if you played that game, the wind actually has meaning to the main character as well. So the guiding force of that actually fits into the plot and fits a little bit better with how that game plays rather than just go to objective marker, which I absolutely hate. And then even with some of the other smaller things, like just even chasing the foxes around, right? So you go to different things and you chase the fox around and the fox would lead you to something. And then you even, even just incorporating like Assassin's Creed style climbing to get to these different shrines. I just felt like every single way they did collectibles in that actually made me want 200% this game, actually made me want to go see everything. And then even like the duels just were so beautifully well done and just so gorgeous in the areas that you fought. You wanted to find all of them. So I was just really impressed with that aspect of the game. And I think you see so many, Ubisoft is notorious for it, and other open world games where it's just like you don't see it incorporated into a game as well as I've ever seen it done in Ghost.
Yeah, I think the thing I really did like about Ghost in that regard too is like in Assassin's Creed you kind of know what you're going into. It's like you are going into an assassin mission.
Yeah.
And in this one, like you didn't really, because if you could use the map, but you could also, if you're using the wind, you could kind of like figure out, it's like you just like come upon something. I think it did a really good job of coming upon something and not really knowing. It's like, what kind of mission is this? I don't know, because I didn't have my map open the entire time and clicking down, click assassin mission or click save the villagers mission.
Exactly. And again, it leads to this feeling of like actually being in the world, not sure. And again, just even not having that total distance counting down made it more of almost like an exploration piece of finding exactly where you're going. Did you overrun it? Were you a little to the right or left? Oh, maybe it's on top of that mountain. It gave you a little bit more thinking just in terms of trying to find those things. So I was really impressed with it. Ghost is a great game. But yeah.
Cool.
All right. So again, both of us, full-time jobs, don't always have the most time to play video games. So the best game we didn't finish. What is your best game you didn't finish?
All right, I didn't play. We did find out I did play a number of 2020 games, but this one is not a 2020 game. But it's been haunting my 2019 and 2020 is Resident Evil 7. I can't play the game for more than 10 minutes at a time. I don't know how long it is. I think my time on it is like 8 hours. Like I know I'm getting near the end, but I really can only play like 10, 15 minutes. Like, and I love the Resident Evil series. Like I don't know if I love, but I play a lot of them. And I really like Resident Evil 2. I like playing survival horror games. There's just something about that game that like, I know it's good. I can't play it. I can't play it. And I can't do it, but I'm trying.
To be fair, this is like every now and then, like we'll text back and forth about games. And like, I swear it's like once a month I get a text about some random piece of Resident Evil 7. And it's like the 10 minute, it's like, I can't play Resident Evil 7. It's like, oh, did you try to get further? I played for 15 minutes and then I turned it off. And then like 2 months later, like, this scene in Resident Evil is so cool. It's like, oh, are you trying to finish it? No, I played it for an hour and I turned it off.
It's funny because like I think like a lot of times like you stop playing. The thing that's funny with this one is like I feel like when you don't finish a game, like you're just not going to touch it again. It's like no, I'm chipping away. I'm chipping this way like people play JRPGs or something that are like hundreds of hours game, but it's like no, it's a 10-hour game that I'm just like really struggling to get through. And like I plan on finishing it. Maybe I'll do a review, but I don't think I'd be able to remember how the game began by the time I finish this game.
I'm actually curious like where exactly you are in that game because 8 hours you're probably like you said you probably only got a couple hours left.
Yeah, I'm like really low on ammo and like I have to go and like find ammo. It's just like I don't know, I can't do this now. I can't. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, we'll see if I finish that game in 2021 before Resident Evil 8 maybe.
it'll be Doug's best game he didn't finish for the next 3 years.
That'd be very funny.
All right, so mine comes with a qualifier that I absolutely hate not finishing games. Like it gives me like a little weird feeling when I put a game down. Like Persona 5 is in the PS Plus collection, and it's like I'm just like to the point where it's like I don't have time for this. Like I need to put it down, and it's like stressing me out that like I'm not going to finish that game. So with that being said, there's only a couple I didn't finish from 2020 because I didn't cheat and go back a year. So the game I picked is Iron Man VR.
Okay.
Which
I love our impressions of that because that was the best VR game since Astrobot.
which I want to qualify here. And here's the thing with this game. It is no hands down, when we get to top 3, it would be in my top 3 of best first halves of a game.
Sure.
The first few missions with this are insane and incredible, and I absolutely love them.
Yeah.
You get to about the halfway point, and like VR in my mind is something that should not be like a challenging struggle to get through. Like, I don't have time to have that VR headset on to fight through a boss multiple times. Like, give me my 2 or 3 tries, let me get through it. I got to a point where it was just like, I am not going to get past this part unless I really put in some effort.
Yeah.
And A, I don't want to have this headset on my head that long, and B, like, I'm just struggling with like the control aspect of it. So I got to a boss and I was just like, I'm done. But that first half of the game up until that boss is amazing. Like, it is fantastic. It is some of the best VR. The first hour of that game, which you can play as a demo, I'm not sure if that demo is still up or not, is some of the best VR outside of Astrobot, is some of the best VR that's ever existed in my mind. But once it was one of those hard cuts where it's like, it's not worth it. It's not worth busting this headset out. It's not worth trying this boss a couple times. Like, I'm turning around and my controller's getting lost in the tracking, and just I'm done. But
yeah. No, that's funny because I remember how hot you were on those VR demo impressions of it. It's like, we never actually did a review of that game. It's like, yeah, I never finished it. Like,
yep, I'm like 60% through, and it was one of those games where I was just like, I need to be done because this will frustrate me and infuriate me. And if there's one more boss that's even a little bit harder than this, like, I no, don't got the time for it.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. No, I gotcha.
All right, so this next one, Doug kind of already talked about because he cheated, is the best game that didn't come out this year. Yeah. Again, we are not big fancy game corporation, so we don't always have time to play stuff, and honestly just get behind on things. So the best game that didn't come out this year that you played for the first time this year. I put some qualifiers on it because, like, otherwise mine's Uncharted 2. But I've played that like 3 times, so we're not going to cheat. So, best game that didn't come out this year.
I think the best game that didn't come out this year, and probably one of the most surprising games. I had a few like written down. I was like sitting here debating as I was reading. It's like, it was going to be A Short Hike, or the one I've chosen, which is A Plague Tale. I think
both good choices.
Sorry, what'd you say?
Both good choices.
Yeah, I thought. I think I have this thing with games that, like, I really like games that I have zero expectations going into because they blow me out of the water because I was like, I thought A Plague Tale: Innocence was going to be a bad game. So my expectation were set at, this is going to be a bad game. And by the time I finished that, I was like, oh, this is actually like one of the stronger narratives in games I've played before. And it's amazing. There's a lot of, I think I think I don't even know why I started. I forgot why we both played Plague Tale around the same time. It was like a free game or
Game
something.
Pass. It was on Game Pass is where I played it.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That's right. Yeah, that's where I played it too. I just think that A Plague Tale did like a really, really good job of creating characters that you really, really cared about. It's basically, the story follows like this girl who's about 17 years old taking her brother who's about maybe 10 years old through a very harrowing experience during this like really crazy version of the bubonic plague in which rats are like this like massive, I don't know what you call them, tidal wave sort of thing.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool because I think the game, I thought the game did some really, really interesting things, like really horrifying sections. I had heard the game was kind of scary. I was like, all right, but there's some like imagery in that game that's like legit haunting.
Yes.
That like I was not expecting at all. I was just expecting kind of like, all right, it's gonna be like a 6 or a 7 kind of game. That's, you know, it's gonna be janky and that sort of thing. And I was like, oh, actually, by the end of this, I really, really care about these characters. I really care about this world. I'm really excited for like whatever Plague Tale 2 is. I think it kind of doesn't really reveal it doesn't really reveal its hand of like what's actually going on to the end, and it's kind of fun when it may or may not go off the rails at the end in kind of fun ways and unexpected ways. But yeah, no, I just thought the game was like really cool, and I think it's like more people should play it because I think that whatever expectation you have for it are going to be exceeded, which is not something you can say for most games.
Yeah, I had the same experience where I was like, oh, okay, it's not Game Pass, I'll give it a shot, and again, like almost made my list. Like it's probably like third one on my list if I was going to do like the top 3 games that I played that didn't come out this year. But yeah, and that haunting imagery, there are just scenes in that where you're just like, oh, this is gross. Like,
Yeah, I felt bad. There's like scenes in that game like I feel bad. Like it's just that's cool. I like when a game makes me feel like weird, interesting ways, and that definitely one was like, oh, this is a bad feeling.
Yeah. All right, so I have two because one I feel like is kind of cheating. My first thought was Xenoblade Chronicles, but that was the definitive edition that came out this year. So I don't know if that's cheating or not.
No, that counts. No, that counts. It doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't come out this year. That's the only. That's the only thing.
It did kind of. Anyway,
oh, it did. Because the remake came out this year.
So I don't know. That one's a little fuzzy, count. But that doesn't count. Okay, then my second one, just in case, my second one is Death Stranding, which is just a game that blew away my expectations as well, and was a game that I was terrified to play. Which I talked about a little bit in our review of it, where it's just I hold Metal Gear in such high esteem that like there was no way in my mind that this was like going to be anything but a giant letdown. Like all the trailers are just like, you got no clue what the hell you're doing. You're just making stuff up as you go with this. Like nothing looks like it's connected. And just as you play through that game, it's just such a weird experience that's unlike anything I've ever played before.
Yeah.
That it works. It's not something I ever really need to see repeated. I don't need a Death Stranding 2. I don't need more games where I'm just walking around a random world being a FedEx guy. But the way that story plays out, the way everything's interconnected, and just some of the weird things that happen in it are just so cool. And especially the world building, just the first few hours when you just get tossed into this world and you're just lost and confused. And by the time you keep going through and stuff keeps making more and more sense as you go through and connect all of these different places, it's such a cool way to tell a story, and it's just such a cool game.
Yeah, I just started that recently. I man, that game seems really cool in a lot of cool ways. I was like, oh shit, this is actually, it's a weird art house AAA, which just is so unique.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it. It has the mind of a weird indie game in the budget of like Horizon.
Sure. Yeah.
But just such a cool game. Also, Xenoblade Chronicles, one of the best JRPGs ever. Best game from this year that we didn't like. So we may or may not have finished this, but a game that like you can sit there and go, this game is incredible, and I don't like it.
Ghost of Tsushima.
That's such a bad answer.
I've tried so many times. I've had like play sessions. Like I think I've had like 6 or 7 play sessions. Like, you know what? People say this game's amazing. I'm gonna try. And like the whole hour, I'm just like, it just feels like every open world to me. And I know to other people it doesn't, but to me it just does. It just does. Although I will say this is definitely a Doug thing, that I don't like fighting human characters. I have this like weird thing about it's like fighting humans in games. I just like think they're not interesting because it's like sword guy with shield, heavy sword guy with shield, big guy with shield. It's like there's very archetypal characters. I feel like you're looking at me like this is your game of the year.
No, I'm in my mind. It's everything you're saying is true, and that's the thing with this is like the thing with Ghost of Tsushima is it does very little new. But what it does is it takes a lot of things that I think defined this generation and perfects is a hard word to use. I don't necessarily want to go that far, but does them better than most other things do. And it does all of that in one category.
Completely disagree with you.
I know, and that's because
I don't think the cinematics are good as other games with good cinematics. I don't think the fighting is as good as game with other fighting. I don't think the story is as interesting as games that have interesting story. I think it's like a solid 8 in everything, and like there's so many other games that do. It's the thing is, this is gonna sound really weird. It annoys me how consistent it is. It feels like there's not. These are all Doug problems. I like inconsistent games. I like a part in a game that sucks because the part you play after that is going to be amazing. But everything here just hits the same level of like. There's no up and down to it to me as far as like the narrative goes, and as far as like I mean, admittedly, I think I only got like 10 hours into it, so like I'm not saying I beat the game or anything like that.
Yeah,
but it just felt like everything I did was just hitting the same sort of monotone note in my head. And like that's just the reason I didn't like it, because like I just like when I came upon a story and I was just like, oh, the twists to me were never that interesting. I think this is the problem I have with Assassin's Creed games. I don't like the one reason I don't like Assassin's Creed games is because they're like, oh, there's a mysterious spirit in the forest, and when you get there, it's not a mysterious spirit; it's a guy dressed as a spirit doing something. And it's like, but we're in a video game. Like, why not just be the thing? Like, why not just have it? But that's not Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost of Tsushima is
no, I know, yeah.
sort of historical narrative. So that's the thing that always bugged me about these sort of historical games is that you are a video game. You don't even have to like obey the laws of gravity if you don't want to. So when you're like, there's a monster in the woods, let's go investigate it, and it's like, oh, it's not a monster. It's like, why can't it just be a monster? Like, which is why we played a little bit of the co-op stuff, and I was like, oh, this is fun because there's zombies and stuff, and I was like, okay, I like that.
Yeah, I get that, because everything you're pointing to is things going like, this game is really stuck hard in the fact that it is very historical and is trying to be accurate in those ways in certain aspects. And I could see that being a sticking point of going like, but I want my weird fantasy. Like, let me kill a skeleton.
Yeah,
give me a skeleton monster.
Exactly. No, exactly. Like, I really just wanted, like, if this was like, let's do Ghost of Tsushima, but just do like Japanese mythology monsters or something. I was like, yes, let's do that. But it's like, no, let's just do hard history. I don't know what you call it. What's that? What's like hard sci-fi, but for historical stuff?
Yes, I don't know. I don't know if that's a genre, but
yeah.
His textbook, call it a textbook.
Sure. Yeah. The one thing I will commend the game though is like a lot of Japanese developers really liked it, and I was reading a lot about how Japanese people felt about that game, and I was like, oh, they actually like nailed this. Apparently, like what what they were doing, they nailed it. I don't like it.
In a similar vein, best game I didn't like, and actually having played like a few hours of this, I absolutely loved playing this game.
Yeah,
I just couldn't do it. Hades. That game is incredible.
Yeah, sure, yeah,
it's so good. It's amazing. I would struggle to argue with anybody who said that is the best game that came out in 2020. I absolutely hate it and will never touch it again.
So sorry.
I hate roguelikes. I hate them.
Sure.
I hate them with a passion. I waited so long on this, and it was one of those things where it was like, everybody gave this game like 10 out of 10s. Doug played it and said it's amazing. Like, it got nominated for Game of the Year at the Game Awards. Like, and I was like, I gotta play it because I love Supergiant games. Bastion started off so well. Even Pyre, which I don't think is one of their better ones, like I loved and got so into just the weird sport of that. I love their games. This has every thing that they do well in games done so well. I fought the same boss like 3 times. Like, I'm not like I beat the same boss 3 times. Like, I don't need to do it again.
That's so funny.
It's one of those things where it just comes down to like, I'm not enjoying the fact that I'm playing the same thing over and over again. And it was like, but you got a little farther. It's like, yes, I did. I got a little farther. I played for 45 minutes and I saw 4 minutes of new content. Like,
that's so funny.
It's
I think it's not like, to me with Souls games, there's like a hump you get over and then you get a Souls game, but a roguelike's like, it's always a roguelike. Like, it's not, if you just don't like that genre, it's not going to change.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like, I feel like I have to try one every 2 or 3 years, because every like 2 or 3 years there's one's like, but no, like this one. Yeah. This is the one. It's like, all right, I'll give it a shot. And it's just, I could not get over it. It was like the 3rd time I beat the first boss, and like the 2nd time I died on the 2nd boss. It's like, I don't have it in me. I don't have it in me to do this again. It's not happening. I don't care that I have a new weapon. I don't care that I got a new I don't remember what the little like artifact things are called. I don't care. It doesn't matter. I'm just gonna fight the same boss again. She's gonna say some cool new line of dialogue, and that's it. But gameplay wise, like
it's like I feel like you either love a roguelike or you just, it doesn't click with you at all. And like, I wouldn't even defend it. I would never push you to play more Hades. It's just like, yeah, that's a roguelike. That's just what it is.
But like the writing is so good, and I like, and that was the thing that almost bothered me more about this, was like, I liked dying. Like, I liked going back and talking to all the little people, and I don't remember the area that you were in, but I loved going back and talking to all the little people and like hearing smirky remarks and like passive aggressive comments from it. It was so well done, and I loved it. And it's just like, I can't do it.
That's so funny. Yeah. No, I feel like that's I can see a lot of people. I can feel like a lot of people get that impression because like, Hades is the game of the year, no strings attached, everybody should play it. I'm like, well, I don't know about everybody should play it.
Nah, this is a very specific genre that I don't think is well known enough to say everybody should play this. But
yeah, exactly.
If it's your thing, like, man, if they made like a weird, cool I don't know, something like that. I don't know what genre I really like, but anyway, I get it. So last but not least, we narrowed it down to our top 3 games from 2020, just in general. I'm gonna quickly say that I really struggled with this, so bonus points to Ghost of Tsushima and Miles Morales for being almost my top 3 games of the year, but not quite my top 3 games of the year. And I will say that those 3 rotated in and out with one other game like 17 times in the last 4 days. So anyway, good job, Miles Morales.
Go with your start with your 3 then. If you like you warm me up for your third one.
Okay, so I don't have them in order though.
What?
Did you want me to? Do you want me to order them and go like number 3?
Yes, that's the whole point of doing your top 3 games. Would you think it was just top 3 random games? No,
just top 3 in general. Like these 3 were really good. Okay, well this one's number 3, and then will you talk about one? I can fight in my head about the other 2. So number 3, the one that kind of, and these 3 Miles Ghosts and this one kind of fought it out for this third spot. That's Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Sure.
I have a lot of problems with this game. Not a lot. I have like 2 very specific problems with this game. But just damn, this game stuck with me. And as I was kind of like looking back through like games trying to figure this out, that one was the one that I kept going like, I should replay that.
Yeah.
I really do want to replay that. That was that Hell House. That was really cool. I should do that again. You know what? I had a lot of fun with that. And it was the one that kept sticking in my brain like, man, this was just a cool game. Like, how exactly did that end? Like, I want to do that last battle again. That last battle was really cool. I'd like to try that again. Which I didn't have quite as much with Miles and Ghost. Now, I will say I platinumed Miles and Ghost, so that might be the reason why I don't want to go back to them. But this one just stuck in my head of like, it did so many cool things. I think you kind of talked about the remake and how they incorporated that earlier, so I don't want to get too much into that, but that was really cool. And just the way this game worked out was so good. And it was better than I thought it could be. I really like Final Fantasy VII, and this I think definitely surpassed the Midgar section in the original one.
Oh shit! No shit.
I don't know if I'm quite ready to say that it surpassed Final Fantasy VII in general, but
sure.
I mean, the fact that's even a thought in my head is incredibly telling of this game.
Yeah, it's got 3 more games to figure it out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now are we going to yours, or are we going this burning through my list?
I'll do my number 3. I'll do number 3. We'll kind of like build up to number 1.
Good, because I need a second. I need to argue back and forth in my brain for a minute.
Okay, that's fine. And now you're going to listen to me talk about Remnant from the Ashes, which came out in 2019, but the expansion pack came out this year, and I also played that. So I'm just going to give the whole package of Remnant from the Ashes my number 3 game 2020. It's really funny because I actually thought about this between this and Hades. And the reason I didn't pick Hades is because Hades... there's these sort of like arcade games I like to play. Like I like to play Hades. I like to play different roguelikes, but they kind of just stay at the top of this sort of like, I like the gameplay and I thought the writing was good, but it doesn't like really dig deep down into me. It's like, oh, this is something like really kind of cool that really stuck with me. Well, I felt like Remnant, while it's not as good as Hades, I felt like just the interesting things that it was doing kept like going like, oh, that's interesting. I've never seen that before. Oh, that's interesting. I've never seen that. Oh, I haven't seen that. It was just like things that like, I really, really love in games. Like I really, really love good monster design. I really, really like fighting interesting monsters. I really like action RPGs that are not super stat heavy and more like slotting in different skills and different spells sort of thing. And then I just thought I just thought the world was like super fun and interesting. And it was a game I had like just 0 expectations going into. And I think just like every minute of that game, I was having fun and loving, and just maybe not the first hour, which is like the worst part of that game that everybody drops off at.
Which is funny because, quick story, Doug said when I had Game Pass, like, can you try Remnant? I really want to play that. And I said, okay, I'll play the first hour. And I finished the first hour and went, I'm not feeling it. Like, I don't know, maybe you'll like it, but I'm not feeling it. Like, the first hour is kind of boring. And then I think you tried it like 2 months later, like, what are you talking about? This game's incredible.
yeah, exactly. And like the first hour is just not very good. I almost had that as like best at burying the lead, but it did a very bad job of burying the lead, because like if you wanted to hop off the game in the first hour, that's not a good bearing of the lead of what it is. And the one thing I did want to keep, actually the reason I was like, okay, that was a 2019 game, but I did play the expansion pack. And I will say the expansion pack did push it into my 2020, because the only complaint I had with the original game was that the final boss sucked. And then in the expansion pack, they're like, we're going to give you a super amazing, clearly was maybe the final boss originally because it's super cool and it's like has like multiple phases. It feels like it could have been like a Final Fantasy game. Like it's very, very cool. So yeah, Remnant is just a super sick game that I don't recommend to everybody. But it's less Dark Souls, more Diablo, and it's tough.
Nice. So I'm probably going to change this in an hour and then change it back in 2 days. But for right now, I'm going to say my number 2 is 13 Sentinels.
Ooh.
13 Sentinels is an incredible game. It has one of the best video game stories I think I've ever seen. And it tells it in a way that I've never seen anybody do a story before. I think it takes something that like Game of Thrones does, where you've got like 6 or 7 intertwining characters that kind of are all pushing for the same goal and going towards the whole thing. And I never finished Game of Thrones, but I'm assuming they all come together at the end.
No, it ended great.
I realized halfway through that analogy that I was like, I only made it through like season 3.
No, it's just anyway, it's just the good parts of Game of Thrones. So that's how you say it.
There you go. But just the way that it manages these 13 characters, it brings their stories together. And yeah, I love sci-fi stuff.
Yeah.
And if you can name a sci-fi thing, it's in here. And the way that they make everything work and the ultimate reveals, when we're doing best insert here, I almost said best oh shit moments for 13 Sentinels, because it's just constantly making you look for or seeing something a different way, where it'll say, hey, this, and this happened. You're like, oh, okay, that's a thing that's normal. And then like an hour later it'll be like, remember those things that happened? That's not what they were. And you're like, what? Like, and that happens probably 36 times over the course of that game. And it's just, I can't speak enough to how good that game is, how great the story is, how impressive it looks, and just how much the story keeps you on the edge of your seat. Again, like you said with Remnant, like it is not a game I would recommend to a lot of people, because it is primarily a visual novel. It has some other gameplay elements in there, but it is a unique thing that I think if you're into sci-fi, you're okay with a visual novel, is a must play for anybody. It's insanely good.
Cool. I didn't think it'd be that high up on your list. I didn't really. I didn't think it'd be that high up on there. That's cool.
Yep.
I
mean, maybe number 1.
That's okay. You can say that now. That's fine.
I almost want to talk about my next one, and then after I talk about it for a second.
That's fine. You got like 10 more minutes left of this thing. We can figure it out. You can figure
number
it out.
Number 2 for Doug.
Okay, number 2 for Doug is Demon's Souls. It's a very good game. I talk too much about Souls games in general, so I will keep it as short as I can. I didn't realize how. So first of all, Demon's Souls is a very good game. You've heard a million podcasts talk about it. We have a review up. Just go listen to that review of my thoughts on Demon's Souls. I will say, though, I didn't realize how effing good looking this game was, because I was like, ooh, I want to play more Souls. I was halfway through my second playthrough of Dark Souls 3. Let's boot that thing up. And I was like, holy hell. Like, this game, I don't know if it's just Dark Souls, but I don't remember Dark Souls looking bad, but I was like, holy crap. Demon's Souls, I think the one thing I actually didn't talk about in the review is just how effing good looking it was. It is just very cool. It's like a PS5 showcase sort of thing. I had just fun, not the entire time, but it definitely had that sort of like trials and tribulations that's always great about Souls games. It had a lot of cool, surprising moments that I wasn't expecting throughout. It had just a killer ending. I just love the ending of that game, which is like the only Souls game ending that I enjoy, because I understood what was going on. It's just a very cool game. I think the one thing I've been thinking about Demon's Souls, that everybody will agree, this game is so good that this game has parts that are absolute shit, and it's still one of the best games ever made. Like, that's how good this game is that, yeah, there's just portions that suck. They're bad. Everybody agrees they're bad. They're horrible. And everything else is so much better than that. That nice. It's just one of the best. And like, I can't imagine. It was funny, like playing the Shadow of the Colossus remake recently and like looking, I was like, oh, Bluepoint, like they know what made these games good and what to keep and that sort of thing. It's like, I don't, that team at like Bluepoint, like I the weight of making these games must be like insane. Like they remade two of like the best games from PS3, like in PS2 and PS3, and they nailed it.
Yeah, they're incredible. All right, so my for now number one is Yakuza Like a Dragon.
Oh, cool.
This game I love the Yakuza series. It has consumed my last 2 years in terms of video games. I played through all of them over the course of the last 2 years. Um, this game's incredible. Like, it is so much fun.
Yeah.
It takes so much of the Yakuza seriousness and just like goes hard in it, and then the next thing you know, there's a whole bunch of crayfish biting at a guy, and then you're talking to him, and it's just, it takes the goofiness of Yakuza and fits it in with the character so well. I feel like Kiryu always kind of had this weird, like, Kiryu's way too serious to be doing these weird goofy things, where with Ichiban it's just like, no, like, this is who he is. Like, he would absolutely do this dumb little thing where he like goes and does whatever weird, feeds hot chili to random people so that they can run faster. Like, that's an Ichiban thing. Like, he's all about that and he would love that. And just the way that this game takes the Yakuza series and just kind of respects what was there in terms of the prior 7 games, and then takes this and does just new things with it, with the combat especially. It's so much fun to play. It's one of those games that just, I always had a smile when I was playing this game, you know what I mean, where it's just like, I'm constantly happy, I'm constantly enjoying what's going on, whether it's a serious moment of like a Yakuza threatening my friends, or whether it's me pulling a baseball bat out of the ground like it's a master sword. Like, every single thing in this game is just fun and amazing.
Man, I'm so excited to play that game now. Now that I actually like finished 6, I'm like actually super excited to get to that one. And it being amazing helps.
It is so good, and it's, again, just Ichi as a character is just such a cool character. He fits the series so well. It was my biggest concern going into this is, what are you going to do with Kiryu? How are you going to replace Kiryu? And it's just like, I don't give a crap about Kiryu. I want more Ichi. Like, he fits this so much better. He's so good. I want more Ichi.
It's really funny because I always felt like Kiryu in every scenario was always the straight man. And it's fun that it's like, oh, no, now we can make a character who actually plays within the nonsense instead of just being the straight man the entire time.
Exactly.
That's really cool. Yeah. My number one. Right.
Yep.
You know what it is. It's Final Fantasy, of course.
Yeah, I could have told you that when we started. Yep. Final Fantasy VII Remake.
It's so good. It's just the best. It's I won't talk about blocking, but it is like everything I've always wanted for Final Fantasy games as a kid and all that stuff. And I talked about that at length before. I just think that this remake, it is so creative for being a AAA game. It's so creative for being just a Final Fantasy VII game. Like, just think about all the Final Fantasy VII stuff that came out afterwards. It's just creative in that atmosphere. It has characters that they reinvented and made them more fun and interesting. Yep. They made the story more fun and interesting. Well, I don't know if they, we'll ultimately see how that pans out. But they at least made the story not what you were expecting. Yeah. I don't know. I just think that game is utterly fantastic. And the one thing I will absolutely give it props for is that it figured out a way that Final Fantasy 15 utterly failed in like making both the turn-based fans and the action games fans happy. I think that system for Final Fantasy 7, like, they nailed that after, like, I think the experimentation maybe started with like Final Fantasy 12. And like, it's been 5 or 6 games of like, what is a turn-based versus an action game sort of mishmash thing. Yeah. And like, they finally got to this one. I was like, oh no, this is the one. They absolutely nailed.
And that's, I think, and I think the combat, like, because of all the other aspects of this, the combat, like how perfectly nailed that is, gets overlooked. It's so much like, they made it look like I imagined it. Like, they did such unique things with the stories. The characters are so much better that I think it's like almost like, no, they were able to do turn-based and real-time battles in the same game at the same time and make both feel good. And that's such an impressive accomplishment in and of itself, that alone is just mind-blowing.
Yeah, and sometimes make it look like Advent Children. Like, when you saw Advent Children, like, the game always sucked, but you remember those fights. It's like, oh man, why can't you do this in the game? That'd be so cool. And like, they grounded a little bit more, obviously, but it's like, no, there's some scenes that feel like those cool Advent Children, like, oh, I'm Sword, I'm Cloud or whatever, and this is what he would be doing in this fight sort of thing. He'd be jumping around and stuff, and it's like, it is just insane. That game to me is something that's just firing on all cylinders, all the time. And I think sometimes it misses, which, again, like I think I said before, I'm okay with inconsistent games because I think the bad parts make the good parts better. And And I just think it felt just like another game that just swung for the fences constantly, and it hit way more than other games I've seen try to swing for the fences. I think Kingdom Hearts 3 tried to swing for the fences. I think Final Fantasy 7 did a better job at swinging for said fences.
Yes, that's a true statement.
Yeah.
So, by average, that makes Final Fantasy VII Remake our Workforce Gaming Game of the Year, because
don't do that.
I didn't play your other two, and you didn't play my other two, so yay, Final Fantasy VII.
I think it's funny when we had better drag out fights when we actually played like all three of the games. Like, is Rocket League the best game of 2017? We'll find out.
Whereas now it's like, well, you didn't play Yakuza or 13 Sentinels, and I haven't played Demon Souls, so I don't know, Final Fantasy VII, we both played that, done.
Yeah, I feel like we're definitely much more set in like the games we like now. It's not like, let's go try everything. It's like, no, I like this sort of game. I like games with good monsters.
I like Japanese games, apparently.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah.
All right, well, that is 2020. We'll play more games in 2021. But we are Workforce Gaming. You can follow us on Twitter at Workforce Gaming. Subscribe to us wherever you're listening, and we will see you later.
Bye.